All right, guys. So, welcome once more to our weekly Cyber and GRC article review. And for sure, we are always happy to have you joining us where we can actually discuss very important points as it relates to cybersecurity and GRC, looking at those various topic or points that can definitely build our cybersecurity career. And this week we have joining us to discuss the topic of cyber resilience. And this is something that no doubt many of you would have actually heard this being discussed in various forums. But the fact is that you may have cybersecurity measures in place within organization, but that does not mean that your organization is resilient against cyber attacks. And you will understand why as we go along in our conversation. And so we definitely need to, for sure, get some clarity between cybersecurity and cyber resilience and actually be able to put these in context just to get a better understanding of where this is actually coming from. And before we actually dive into our article, as usual, we normally share our articles that you can actually follow along with us. And for sure, please feel free to ask questions and add your various inputs as we go along in our conversation. All right, so uh, let me quickly just add that article to all right, guys. So there we have our article. Very important. It's an article that speaks about cyber resilience and cybersecurity. But before I actually get into that article, it's very interesting enough that I actually came across something that uh, um, brought my attention very importantly as we look into cyber resilience, and is a case um, that highlights the importance or looks at cyber resilience. And for many persons, you might be familiar with the WannaCry ransomware attack that occurred in May 2017. And the attack affected over 200,000 computers in 150 countries because significant disruption to the healthcare systems, transportation networks, and other critical infrastructure. And the WannaCry attack targeted computers running the Microsoft Windows operating system and exploited a vulnerability that had been identified by the NSA. The vulnerability was later leaked by a group called the Shadow Brokers, and hackers used to spread the WannaCry. And it goes on to say that the ransomware encrypted the files on infected computers and demanded a ransom payment in exchange for the decryption key. And it goes on to say in the article that the attack highlighted the importance of cyber resilience, which refers to an organization's ability to prevent, detect, respond to, and recover from cyber attacks. So this is one of the things that actually piqued my interest, pointing to the fact that if cyber resilience was implemented or existed in this context, then this organization would have been able to withstand the attack of this ransomware. So, I mean, with that said, though, we actually have our main article, which is the cyber and cyber security. What's the difference? So, Paul, can you share your perspective on this article before we actually dive into the actual details of what is presented?
Yes, I would love to do that. Oh, and real quickly, I think Chris was trying to jump on here, so just
Oh,
wanted to let you know that
let
I
me
saw
check.
it pop up.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah, there he is.
There he is.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, Paul.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, Chris.
Great having you.
Great having you.
Good to be here. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Paul. I was listening.
Yes. So with the article, what I wanted to do was to kind of. I'm actually getting some feedback. Sorry. I don't know if you're hearing that feedback. Hello? Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes, you can go ahead.
Okay, great. So what I wanted to kind of do with the article was, the article speaks for itself, and I think we could dive into it. But a couple things I wanted to lay the foundation here with is, we do a poor job in our industry of falling into different camps when it comes to philosophical debates or debates on what it is that we need to do from a protection perspective. And the first thing I wanted to mention here is that resiliency and cybersecurity go together. And as resiliency has come up recently, you're now starting to see people that say, well, it's all about resiliency and it's not about cybersecurity. Or some people say it's all about cybersecurity and it's not about resiliency. These all come together. And I wanted to start there to say, hey, we should consider all of these factors. The other thing is, I'm not the most brilliant guy, and that's an understatement when it comes to cybersecurity and risk. So one of the things that I like to do is to use analogies to kind of wrap my head around what it is that we're trying to think here. So I thought back. It's coming up on close to 20 years from now, when the states had the tragedy of Hurricane Katrina, and what a tragic situation that was for our brothers and sisters down south. But in the realm of resiliency and cybersecurity, so I think of the levees that were in place in the New Orleans area. So the New Orleans area has levees to protect the city, from floodwaters with that. So, that's the security piece of it. Those are in place. But as we all know, what happened was that the levees were broken, and that caused even more damage and even a bigger disaster to the city of New Orleans there. So the resiliency piece of it is, okay, what happens when the levee breaks? What happens when I have a tool set and someone gains privileged access to that tool set and they flip the switch and it lets criminals into my network? How do I then stay resilient and conduct business in a state that is a disaster? So wanted to kind of set the stage there with those two thoughts and get people not to fall into a camp here, and then to kind of give a general idea of what the difference and the comparisons and contrast is with resiliency and security.
Definitely, for sure. That's definitely a good way to look at resilience. So, Chris, can you maybe add some clarity in terms of cyber? We are hearing about cyber resilience. We're hearing about cyber security, and we are also hearing the fact that you can have cybersecurity controls within an organization. And an organization will say, yes, we are secure because we have all these necessary tools, resources. And then we are hearing about cyber resilient systems. What's the difference that exists between these two entities or concepts within cybersecurity and our world?
Organizations. So if one of you guys could go on mute or both go on mute, that way we'll reduce the feedback. But generally speaking, cybersecurity focuses on what? It's basic. They're proactive measures to prevent unauthorized access of attacks, right? So you have those controls in place. But to Paul's point is what happens when the levee breaks, right? So you have the controls in place. You've done every single thing: training, cyber awareness, firewalls, compliance standards, securing your devices, promoting awareness, implementing physical and logical security controls. Inevitably something will happen because they're going to kick the door in. What happens when they kick the door in? And it's about disaster recovery, business continuity. So cyber resilience is about the ability for a company or an organization to recover and resume normal operations after a cyber attack. So I absolutely agree 105% that they go hand in hand. There's no bifurcation. There's no dichotomy. It's one. It's belt and suspenders, right? So I couldn't have said it better, and I don't know if I could embellish it. I could only highlight, underscore, put it in bold that absolutely you cannot have one without the other if you, as an organization, want to operate effectively, right, and be resilient. So cybersecurity, again, focuses on external threats from bad actors. Cyber resilience addresses both external threats, such as ransomware, right, which in the case we're discussing now, and internal threats. The human factor, right, the compromised user, the malicious insider, the person with ill intent, right. Cyber resilience acknowledges that not all security measures are foolproof, and then it aims to mitigate the damage once the levees break. So, Paul, I couldn't have said it any better. Are you guys hearing me or no? I'm done with my piece.
Richet's on mute.
Okay, sure, great.
There you go.
So the fact that we are hearing about cybersecurity, cyber resilience, then I think the big question at the end of the day is all about how do we as organizations or business achieve this level of resiliency within our organization, being able to ensure that our cybersecurity measures implementation actually leads to a resilient organization. I think that's one of the big questions that exist behind all of this.
Yeah, I think companies really have to take a step back and understand what the risk is to the organization. When I talk to people about cybersecurity, my first initial question is, or resiliency. My first question is, how do you make money? Let's start there. How does the organization make money? And then what is the reliance on you making money tied into connectivity to the internet, connectivity to applications, connectivity to the virtual world? And when you break it down from that perspective, then it allows them to say, okay, what are we trying to be resilient for? What are we trying to make sure that happens? Which is, how do we not make sure that we are not down hard from conducting business to where we're not making money, to where we have to potentially shut the doors of the organization, to where people lose their jobs. The city of Dallas just announced that they're experiencing a cyber attack. And one thing that we disconnect is, how does the virtual world impact our physical world? And right now, the city of Dallas is really impacted from the physical perspective. 911 is down, medical services are down, municipality services are down. That's impacting everybody's daily lives. So when we talk about a path to resiliency, it's what controls, what things do we need to put in place so that our daily lives are not disrupted, and that we are able to produce goods and services for the clients that we have and provide a safe environment for our employees to work in.
Yes, I definitely agree there. And I do not believe that there are many persons who really understand the background to cyber resilience and, and where this actually came from to in a situation where you have this being discussed, I mean cybersecurity, cyber resilience. It actually has a story as to where this actually came about, right? And that's one of it. This is something that really interests me a lot as we were actually looking at this in detail, and it's the fact that not this. I think this is the article, a very interesting article that I actually came across, and the backdrop or the history behind cyber resilience actually is in our research. I think this is the research that was done. A cyber resilience analysis case study of an industrial operational technology environment. So this is actually where this thing of cyber resilience actually started from. That's the background to cyber resilience. Um, the conversation that actually came surrounds cyber resilience. And it says cyber resilience is an active research era offering a novel approach to cybersecurity. And the term appeared due to the concerning number of cyber attacks on critical infrastructure. So that's the background or the story in a nutshell as this conversation surrounding cyber resilience actually came from. And within the case study itself also highlights a number of different ways that cyber resiliency can be achieved. But separate apart from that, Paul, can you share further details as it relates to this article in terms of how it is that organizations can achieve this level of cyber resilience?
Yeah, I'll just touch quickly on this, and I'd love to hear Chris's take on this. I know that he has some good, brilliant words of wisdom here with that. But again, I think it's organizations having to take a step back in understanding their own environment. The article that you just brought up has to deal with operational technology. Operational technology is going to be different from a K through 12 environment. K through 12 is going to be different than financial. And we as security professionals and security people that want to help have to guide them through that conversation. It can't be where we're looking at it in this macro view of, hey, did you hear about the Colonial Pipeline incident that took place? Well, that's an OT thing. So why is the city of Dallas going to care about an operational technology thing with a pipeline? They want to care about exactly what it is that their organization has. So I'll pause again, and I'm definitely interested in what Chris has to say, but that's really what it is. I think it's peeling back the layers and not going to Z and really starting at A.
No, Paul, I think you're absolutely right. There has to be some context behind it, and it's consistent with what you said before, right? You got to understand like why you're in business, right? What is your attack surface? So the attack surface of Colonial Pipeline is very much different than the attack surface of the city of Dallas or a SLED organization. So I think that's important. A couple of points I wanted to raise though was, when you look at this article, the article presents a very strong case for the integration between cybersecurity and cyber resilience. But there's some counterpoints that we should also consider, right? Which is kind of following on your point. When you look at the complexity and the resource allocation within the organization, that's very, very important, right? Because if you're going to integrate cybersecurity and cyber resilience, it requires a significant number of resources, which means investment in technology, staff training, like regular testing, right? For smaller organizations with a limited budget and not so robust of resources, achieving full integration may be very challenging, right? So, City of Dallas may have a different budget than uh, a Fortune 1 company, right? Versus the Colonial Pipeline. So that's the first one. The other thing is, again, to your point, is the different priorities and focus, right? Cybersecurity and resilience have different priorities and focus areas, which we talked about before. Cybersecurity focuses on preventing and detecting threats, while resilience, again, what happens when the levee breaks, right? So it's the respond and the recovery function. Think of the NIST cybersecurity framework, right? It's those last two functions, respond and recover. How are you able to kind of, levy breaks? So what do you do now? Are you able to kind of continue operations? And there are other factors such as, the time dependency, the external dependencies, right? Let's throw in third party risk, for example, right? And then uh, this is the one, I'm at a conference right now. We're talking about AI, right? The evolving threat landscape, right? AI is going to wreak havoc, um, for CISOs. CISOs normally don't sleep. Well, I don't know what they're going to do now because AI is here and it's going to create a lot of, right? You think about, business continuity, disaster recovery, how you maintain operations. It's not going to be a fun ride. It's going to be a fun ride, but it's going to be a bumpy ride. So anyway, those are my thoughts. I thought, I'm just adding to what you said, Paul.
Yeah, no, I think it's true because one of my mentors in cybersecurity said it best. If you're going to do this right, it's like going to the gym to work out to lose weight. You can't take a pill and hey, take this pill every morning, you lose 30 pounds. Like, you're not getting healthy. You're losing weight, you look better in your suit or your dress or whatever. Like, that's cool, but companies have to be dedicated to this work. For your AI perspective, I saw yesterday Samsung said that they're banning AI on corporate devices. But if I'm an employee of Samsung, I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going on my phone. You're not monitoring my personal device. I'm just going to use Chat GPT or any other AI tool. And how are you gonna stop it? But the thing is that if we are an organization and we explain to them the power of AI and how it is positive, but then also say, listen, if you're putting sensitive information of Samsung in AI, that could release code or documents sensitive to our company, which in turn would lead to us losing a tremendous amount of money, which in turn could lead to you losing your job. Then you start to use the culture. So in resiliency, I think culture is a big thing as well. We have to understand the why. That one payroll company that went down during Christmas a couple of years ago. Like, imagine telling your employees, hey, for the month of December, you have holidays, you have dinners, you have going out, presents to buy. We're not giving you a paycheck. That's going to spark them because that's eliciting a human emotion that's saying, man, I got to take this seriously. And if I don't, then it can personally impact me as well.
That's definitely spot very important perspective as it relates to the cyber resilience, because I mean, at the end of the day, all of these mechanisms, all of these control measures, administrative, technical controls, everything working together to create that culture of resilience. Bearing in fact that resilience is not all about those tools, those firewalls, or those things, but it's a comprehensive framework of the organization, the employees, everyone working together, understanding the objectives of the organization that contributes to the resiliency of that particular organization. So that's a very important point you have made there. Um, there was something important I actually came across, but for some reason I totally forget about it, but I guess it will come back as we go along. Now, I think one of the questions that persons are asking as well is whether or not we have the cybersecurity framework. In this cybersecurity framework, we have various frameworks. I mean, some persons are for frameworks, some persons are against frameworks. Is there a structure in place that is dedicated to achieving cyber resilience? And well, before I actually dive into that, guys, do you have any inputs as to any mechanism, any guidelines that speaks to helping organizations to achieve cyber resilience within their system, within their organization?
Yeah, I think it's eliminating the fear. I know that's a kind of a roundabout way of answering it, but Chris brought up the respond and recover piece of the CSF framework, and I think it's a human instinct to fear that piece of it because that means that something tragically has gone wrong. So if I live in the Midwest, you know, and I have to consider a tornado hitting my house or hitting my block, you know, I don't want my mind to go there because I know the destruction that that's going to cause. So I tend not to think about it. It's like, okay, I hope a tornado doesn't hit, but the geography and the conditions always say that, hey, I'm at risk in it. So from a resilient perspective, I think it's it's not eliminating the fear, but it's normalizing it to say, okay, the likelihood of you experiencing a cyber attack is, it's high. It's very high. So let's start to consider that, but let's eliminate the fear of not of hoping that it doesn't happen, but getting in the mindset of, okay, if it does happen and when it does happen, what can we do to respond and remediate as quickly as possible to get business operations up and running again. So I know that's a little different way of answering it, but I think it's really giving those last two domains of CSF a lot more credence and respect, for lack of better terms, and really diving into it and eliminating that fear, and working through it.
Great. Um, any words on this, Chris?
I don't. Can you hear me? Richard, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing.
Okay, so yeah, yeah, I'll just keep talking. If you don't hear me, that's fine. It's good for my brain anyway. No, I think I can't think of a framework that exists, but it's kind of like stuff that we do on like within a cyber organization, right? Obviously, you always start with a risk assessment, right? And you manage it. You assess the risk of your cyber risk based on the output from that assessment. You then have right a set of tasks to do. So that's one. The second thing I would think of is there's maybe incident response planning, right? You got to have a good incident response planning, and then of course your I always get these mixed up. Your BCDR plan, right? Business continuity and planning, right? You got to have a backup system, right? You got to be able to train awareness. They always say people is the weakest link. I think they're just the most attacked vector. So therefore, they have to be trained, create a security aware culture, and then you got to monitor, right? Threat intel, right? You got to get your threat intel stuff that's coming in your SIM, stuff that you should have like a tip platform, right? A threat intelligence platform, taking your threat feeds, correlating that with your vulnerability, right, and being able to prioritize those vulnerabilities, right? Patch management is also a good part of it, and of course, you want to collaborate. Maybe work with folks in your industry, maybe an ISAC, if you're in the financial sector, like an FS ISAC, and then you want to test, right? Tabletop exercise, simulation, right? Those are always good things. And we're talking about the NIST framework. I think NIST just issued like they're tweaking that framework, and guess what's in there now? So instead of identify, protect, detect, respond, recover, they're saying govern. So I think governance is always a big part of it. How are you doing it? Why are you doing it? Are you focusing on the right thing? So I think implementing these components, right, would give you sort of the framework that you kind of alluded to. Uh, I think organizations, once you're doing these basic things, right, you can establish a structure or a framework that would sort of be your default framework, and it enables them to proactively identify, right, understand and manage their cyber risk, right, and be able to respond effectively to incidents and maintain, while maintaining operations, right, and adapt to this evolving threat landscape that we continually find ourselves in. So those are the things that come to, off the top of my head, but I don't know if there's a framework. It's a good point. I just took notes to look at it, but I don't know if there's such a framework.
Awesome. Great. So That's well, just to add to what you have just said. I mean, we are actually down to the last minute, so I've actually discovered that NIST actually has a document. Um, it's actually the NIST publication 800-160. Actually, just came across looking at this today.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing that.
So,
I'm definitely gonna
for the
look at it.
persons who actually want to dive into implementing cyber resiliency, then they can actually look into this article that gives all the necessary guidelines. I mean, building a cyber resilient system, right? So there's a number of details from this article that gives all that guidelines. I mean, a total of 310 that companies, organizations, businesses can actually pull from to enable that level of resiliency within their organization. So, guys, if you have no further input, then this is the end of another weekly review. Very interesting conversation, guys.
It's always a pleasure. Paul, great learning from you, Richie. It's always good talking to you. Looking forward to next week, and hopefully, we can continue to learn and grow together.
Yes,
Awesome.
thank you so much.
Have a great day, guys. Bye.